there are quite a lot of women who write that their men are Neanderthals.
They're Neanderthal
And
husbands.
there's almost no men who claim their wives are Neanderthals, which also says something
It
about
does,
how we
right?
think about Neanderthals.
Right.
And that it can almost, for men, be sort of a positive trait to be Neanderthal in our imagination, and not so much for women.
Yeah, I told my kickboxing coach one time, he's a very big, man from Hungary. And I said, did you know that you may have some Neanderthal DNA? He was very happy to hear
Yeah,
that.
yes.
Oh yeah, well, that must make me a good fighter. um, so let me ask you then, for the Denisovans, there's been some really rapid research on sort of the DNA found in existing people, and there may be some like health implications of that, also for the Neanderthals. So there was a paper that was published recently, which suggests that about 33% of Mexicans have this gene that is associated with Denisovans and could be protective of against infection. And so as humans were migrating into South America, that was competitively advantageous somehow for their survival. So can you speak more to like other findings we're seeing about, presence of ancient DNA in humans and how that might have some health effects on people today?
Yes, I think one is learning more and more of that. There is both that there are genetic variants that one already knew about since decades that are medically important that turn out to come from Neanderthals or from Denisovans. So there are sort of a variant that you test clinically if you give blood thinners to people, if you have an artificial heart valve, for example, because with those variants, you have to give lower doses of your blood thinners so you don't have serious bleeding. And that variant that is a higher risk for bleeding comes from Neanderthals, for example. And then it's sort of also that one discovers now that things can become important that come from Neanderthals. And the most striking example to me was in the COVID pandemic, where there were risk factors that we all know about, old age, male sex, and so on. But there were also genetic risk factors. And there's one factor on chromosome 3 that doubles or triples your risk of becoming severely ill or even dying when you're infected with the SARS-CoV-2 virus. And that risk variant comes from Neanderthals, it turns out. So, it's in a way fascinating to me that Neanderthals disappeared 40,000 years ago, but suddenly a contribution for them becomes very important when a new virus comes around. And that results in at least 1 million extra deaths in the pandemic, this variant.